What is going on, guys? Randall Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with another daily video. If you missed my last video, I posted a review for Little Nightmares, which just came out today on Xbox and PlayStation. It is a really excellent game. Check it out. I think you might enjoy it if you like games like Inside and Limbo. Truly a great game. I highly recommend it. Anyways, let's get into the video for the day. And Phil Spencer is back in the news. And a lot of people are taking his comments one way or the other. And I've gotten actually a lot of people to hit me up saying, we want to know what you think, Rand, about what Phil's talking about. So for the backdrop, he did an interview with The Guardian. I'll have the link in the description so you guys can check out the interview for yourself. And I'm not going to talk about the entire stuff because they talk about Xbox Game Pass. They talk about microtransactions in games. There's a whole bunch of content here to read through about and basically get an understanding of where Phil sees the industry going and the future it might be moving into. There's a couple things I wanted to address in the video, mainly to do with the first party stuff and its comments about Horizon Zero Dawn and Zelda, because that seems to be the focal point for a lot of people's attention today. So basically, so he starts off and they start talking about commitment to first party, because we all know first party is important, even though multi-platform games tend to rule the roost. But exclusive games are still important. So he talks about first party. He says right now the focus is really on the content that we're building. He says he knows he gets some community pushback on our first party slate and what position we're in. And I want to say to people, the same level of commitment you felt from myself and from the team as we evolved platform over the last 3 years, as we evolved service over the last 3 years, as we evolved and innovate hardware over the last 3 years, is going on with their first party. I don't want to go and pre-announce a bunch of things, but we're upping our investment. There's no doubt about that. So that was his comment about first party. Now, look, Phil took the job in 2014, right? We know games take 2-3 years to develop, bigger games, AAA games. Smaller games take less of time. So we should see some of the fruits of Phil's signings this year. I know a lot of people are like, wait to E3, wait to E3. And that's the constant mantra, is wait to E3. We got Scorpio. We're going to get all these surprises at E3. Because honestly, looking at this year, Microsoft's year is a little on the slim side. Of course, Scalebound being was supposed to be a big part of this year. That obviously got canceled, so that left a big hole in the release schedule. So we've had Halo Wars 2. Yeah, we're gonna get Cuphead and Below finally, a couple smaller indie games, but I don't really think indie games move the needle either for any company, whether it's Nintendo or Sony or Microsoft or Steam. They're just there. Great games like Little Nightmare, absolutely fantastic game, but they don't move the needle. I don't think people really go out and buy a system for them. So we have Halo Wars 2, we have State of Decay 2, we have Crackdown 3, which is the game I'm most interested in out of all those. Sea of Thieves, Forza Motorsport 7, assuming that it's coming out. And that's really about it. I honestly think Sea of Thieves is going to come out next year, so you can probably strike that one off the list. I think State of Decay will come out before September. So then you're with like Forza and Crackdown for the fall. And honestly, I think that lineup is probably their weakest lineup in years. I was way more excited last year for Forza Horizon 3 and Quantum Break than I was for any game this year. I think this is Microsoft's like worst year first party wise in a while. But people always say wait to E3. We need to know what they're doing. So people give this year a pass, like, whatever. This is kind of just a blip in the radar. But they'll surprise us for things. And I don't think, I've said this for a while. I don't think that's going to happen. I think what you're going to get at E3 is Ori 2 and Halo 6. I don't think Microsoft is interested anymore in building huge single-player experiences like Rise or Sunset Overdrive or games like that. I think they're done trying to chase that dragon, so to speak. And I'm not saying like Phil's lying when he says they're upping their investment. I truly believe they are. But I think they're going to be building games. A lot of gamers like myself, a single-player gamer, like I adore single-player games. That is my main focus. I play Call of Duty for single-player. Little Nightmares is a single-player indie game. I play it because I enjoy the experience. And that's not saying I don't enjoy multiplayer games, because I do. I'm just saying the games that get my juices flowing, the games that I remember, the games that I want to play, they're all kind of single-player experiences with maybe a tacked on multiplayer. Multiplayer doesn't do it for me. But I understand nowadays this industry, multiplayer is huge. You got Overwatch, you got Rainbow Six, a whole other bunch of different games that have that games as a service kind of mantra. And I think those type of games, other stuff that they're going to be investing in. Games like Sea of Thieves, a 4-player co-op experience with probably microtransactions, something like that. Something that is light on story, but more kind of make it your own type stuff. So I think we're going to see more games of that from them in the future. And that concerns me. And this is why this concerns me. This concerns me about the future of Xbox and where I think I see it going. And this ties into the other thing I wanted to talk about, which was his quote about Horizon Zero Dawn and Zelda. So he says, "The audience for these big story-driven games, I won't say it isn't as large, but they're not as consistent. You have things like Zelda or Horizon Zero Dawn that'll come out, and they do really well, but they don't have the same impact that they used to have, because the big service-based games are capturing such a large amount of the audience. Sony's first-party studios do a lot of these games, and they're good at them, but outside of that, it's difficult. They're becoming more rare. It's a difficult business decision for those teams. You're fighting into more headwind." So when people read this quote, a lot of people basically took this as a sign that Microsoft Studios is done chasing after large single-player focused games like Zelda and Horizon Zero Dawn. And to that I say, yeah, that's probably true. I don't think you'll see a single-player focused game that costs $50 million like Horizon Zero Dawn or Scalebound or Zelda, right? I don't think Microsoft is going to make that. You'll probably see smaller single-player games on the vein of Recore, something that is cheap, something that can pump out quick, but large story-driven single-player games, I think Xbox is done with. I think they've completely moved in the other direction. And this isn't the first time Phil's talked about this. He's constantly talked about big service-based games. And that's the problem I have with the future of Xbox. This is why, even though I've kind of known about this for a while, like this was kind of the direction they were going in, or at least I assumed this was the direction they're going in, reading all the interviews from Phil, talking to different people around the industry, that I think people aren't going to grasp it until E3 comes around, and it's Scorpio stuff, and Scorpio, and how to make your games better, and how they want those games to run better on Xbox. And the games that they do show, like new games, are just the tried and true. I don't think people will truly understand what Phil's really talking about until this E3 comes and goes, and nothing truly surprising is revealed. And I think people then will see the writing on the wall and be like, well, now I know, right? Now I know that this is the direction that Xbox is heading in. And the question you have to ask yourself after that is like, do you want to be a part of that direction? Now, I play a lot of third-party games, obviously. I play a lot of games, period. I've only owned an Xbox product for the last, since 2004. I've never thought once in the last 12 years about getting a PlayStation or a Nintendo. Not a single time. I was always content with what Xbox gave to me and all the other third-party stuff that came to the system, right? But I've had some serious doubts lately about if the direction Xbox is taking their first-party studios and the games they're going to build into the future, if that's kind of if I want to go along for the ride. Not saying I'm going to drop Xbox, because that's not true, because it's where I'm always going to play. But I feel that with them basically saying story based single player games or large single player games, which is what I crave, which is what I desire, that those type of games they aren't going to do anymore and they're going to focus more on big service based games, then for the first time in 12 years, I'm honestly considering purchasing a PlayStation, because it seems to me that PlayStation is catering to the demographic that wants those experiences. And you know what? They have the audience to try those things. That's the difference here. Look, people need to understand that you can do more when you have more, right? PlayStation sits at 60 some odd million units sold. They just put out their forecast for next year and they're another 22 million or whatever. They are selling consoles at an extreme rate. I think they've just said or MPD or whoever said they're selling more software than the PS2 or Wii ever did, right? They're making in so much money in their games division that they can take a risk on something like Horizon Zero Dawn because they constantly have money coming in because of their huge lead. Xbox, on the other hand, though, doesn't have that same type of thing. Okay? And Microsoft has put out a bunch of exclusives this whole generation. Whether you like them or not, that's a different story. Rise, Sunset Overdrive, Quantum Break. They put out a lot of games. The problem is nobody's bought those games in large enough numbers to have any of those games be a success. So what the data is telling Microsoft is that their core users who play on Xbox don't want those type of games. And remember, Microsoft have all the data on Xbox Live. And what games do extremely well on Xbox Live? It's those third-party games as a service games. For Honor, Grand Theft Auto 5, Overwatch, Rainbow Six. So Microsoft can see that the games people like to play and play for a long time and spend a lot of money on are games as a service games. And they want a piece of that pie too. And they know from their previous efforts that nobody really wants their new IP large story single player games because nobody bought them, because they never make a sequel at all. You know what I'm saying? So it makes sense that Microsoft would go down this road. They want to basically have a piece of that pie too, whereas Sony is making so much money by being number one, they can fill in that library gap and create those large single player story games that people want, and also still have the third party games, make those multiplayer experiences that people want. But yeah, it's just a tough situation for Xbox to be in. And it's a tough situation for people like me who like Xbox a lot, who also enjoy large story-driven single-player games, to know that more than likely you've seen the last of those on Xbox. Of course, Halo 6 will come out, and it will have a single-player, yada, yada, yada. And of course, Gears of War 5 will come out, and it will have a single-player, yada, yada, yada. But you won't see a game like Zelda, or you won't see a game like Horizon Zero Dawn. Microsoft just isn't going to make those games. The writing's on the wall, guys. The writing is on the wall. I've made peace with the fact that I'm getting a PlayStation. As soon as it hits $200, it's mine. I'm getting one. Because there are a lot of games that I do want to play on the system, and there are a lot of future games that I want to play. And Microsoft seems intent on not fulfilling, or at least not satisfying, my desire for those games. So, as a consumer, I'll let somebody else fulfill that gap. Now, of course, I'm still neck deep in the Xbox ecosystem. All my friends play here. Scorpio is coming out, and I am getting it. And Phil and Xbox seem to want Scorpio to be the de facto place to play third-party games. They want people to know that. All their messaging basically has been saying that the system's powerful, it'll make your existing games better, it'll make your new games going forward, they'll be the best on the system. And that's what they seem to care about, at least from all the stuff they've been saying, is this will be the best place to play Call of Duty and Destiny 2 and Red Dead 2 and every single game going forward until eventually PS5 comes out and the next Xbox comes out. And while I do have a problem with Xbox not providing the kind of exclusives that I want, I'm still going to be playing here for the multi-platforms. And I'm just going to get a PlayStation to, play games that are large story-driven games that Microsoft won't give me. So for the first time in 12 years, it's about time to get a PlayStation. Now, with that said, I am intently looking forward to E3. I want to be wrong, of course. I want to be wrong when I say that I don't think Xbox is going to have anything to show surprising in any AAA manner. I want to be wrong. I would love for Phil to come out there and announce all these huge AAA games from new IPs that their studios are working on and prove me wrong. I would love that. But until then, I'm just going to have to wait. Just going to have to wait until the PlayStation gets $200, pick that up, and I can play some of those story-driven single-player games. But I think a lot of people's eyes are going to be opened up when E3 comes and goes. I think a lot of people's eyes will be open. But anyways, guys, hope you liked the video. If you did, hit that like button. Consider subscribing for more content, and I'll see everybody later.